guys. Welcome back to another edition of Texans Unfiltered, a Houston football podcast for your Houston Texans. I'm Youngarigold, and I'm joined by my friend John Wade. And John, how was your week?
Oh, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Got to go to F1. Got to go to Coda.
Oh yeah, did you see Eminem?
Did not see any of the concerts,
Okay.
but I saw the race on Sunday, which was definitely an experience.
Did you have the kids this weekend?
I did not.
So it was just you and okay.
Yep. So saw the race. I think it's more of like, I don't know. It was a great experience, but watching a race isn't the same as watching a football game. Like, there's no like real crowd interaction. Like, there's a little bit of cheering, but it's so freaking loud, and everybody has these little radios in. And I did not know that. Like,
oh really?
You get a radio so you can hear the radio broadcast.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did
so
you
you
get
can know
one?
what? Yeah, I think they were free if you were an American Express holder. So you just showed your card, and they gave you a radio, which was pretty
Nice.
cool. But I mean, the energy watching the race wasn't the same as like any other sport I've ever been to. But like the after, like people climbing the fence and trying to get the driver's attention. There's a new driver. I believe he's out of where's he out of? Is he out of Argentina?
Did you make him spill his macchiato?
No. What?
Have you
No.
don't get that reference?
I don't get that reference.
You've never seen Talladega Nights?
Oh, it's been a long time, man.
Oh my
There
god!
was
if nobody else got that reference, that would be crazy. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah. No, there was a Ricky Bobby cosplayer there, though.
Yeah, I saw him. I actually saw him at the Eminem concert.
Oh, nice.
Because I only went to the Eminem concert. I didn't go to F1.
No, but yeah, different energy. Very passionate fans, but it's weird. It's like all the energy is outside the sport itself. Like watching the sport, they just wait till everything's over, and then everybody starts yelling and crying and screaming about the rules not being fair. And apparently they have these things called stewards, where they can assess time penalties to the drivers if they do things. Like, it's wild. Learning a lot, but it is absolutely wild.
Yeah. We were gonna try to go check out a couple races, but we were like, nah. Like, I just wanted to see Eminem.
No,
actually, I've already seen him. Parker, that's Parker's favorite artist, so he wanted, and I didn't know when he'd have another chance to do it. So it was like, let's just go see him. But it was awesome to see him, and
I heard it was a great show.
Yeah, it was a great show. I mean, he's great, but yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. That and some golf, and then watching the Texans lose to the Packers.
Yeah, I mean,
we knew the streak would come to an end, right? Like, you just can't keep going and winning and winning and winning and winning. I think that's pretty much how we ended last episode, was saying, like,
yeah,
it's gonna stop at some point. They're gonna lose.
We've got to lose. I mean, it was in Lambeau. The Packers are a great team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
They're a better coach team.
This is not a team to have any shame in losing to.
Yep.
However, there's definitely some things to be absolutely pissed off about.
Yeah, I think when we talked last week, we talked about like the offensive minded coach versus the defensive minded coach, and like who would win out. LaFleur just had an overall better game plan on both sides of the ball, not just the offensive side of the ball. He outcoached D'Amico Ryans, which, you know, LaFleur, I think, is his 4th year in Green Bay, so he has more time, more experience as a head coach. He fumbled within the first 2 years. I mean, he didn't have like a solid 2 years, so he's starting to like evolve and become a great head coach. So he had the upper hand over D'Amico, but D'Amico definitely looked outcoached. There were a lot of issues within this game. One of them not being the run game. The run game looked extremely good for another week, which is great. One of the positives to take away. But the offensive line is, before we get to Slowik, because I know we're going to have to get to him. I understand the last series. We could definitely talk about the last series, but that offensive line is a true mess. I'm ready for the Titus Howard experiment at right tackle to go back to left guard.
Yeah,
I'm ready to put another tackle there. Figure out wherever you want to put Kenyon Green at that point. I don't really care. But this offensive line, for what we have invested.
Oh, yeah. Kenyon Green needs to be cut.
Yeah, he
is the worst starting guard in football.
Is he?
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean, well, by PFF rank, by pressures allowed, And I mean,
That's
and
crazy because through the first 2 weeks, he everything else was the opposite.
Green?
Yeah.
No, I mean he was.
You're talking about Kendrick Green or Kenyon Green?
Kenyon Green.
You're sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Because through 2 weeks, Kenyon Green looked really good.
No, he didn't.
He did.
He looked better than.
He actually. There was
better.
one game where he was the highest rated player in a game.
He might have been
by PFF. It was like in the 89.
Yeah, we may have to double check this, but he hasn't looked great. But you also got to remember his rookie season, he was also the worst rated guard.
100%.
And then he was hurt, so he missed his entire second season. And so, like, the bar was literally on the ground for him. Like, he didn't have to do much. And now he's back being one of the worst graded. He is, for this past week, he gave up the most pressures out of any guard in football.
Makes sense.
So
it looked like it.
And I mean, I haven't been impressed with him yet. He's been
good in the run game. That's where I think like the balance.
Not this week though. Like he's not getting that push.
I don't know. I didn't rewatch the game, and I watched it at like a friend's house. So like I didn't really like. I watched the game, but I didn't watch it intently, like watching Kenyon Green or anything like that. But I mean, there were runs to his side. It looked like there were holes. So I don't know. I'm not going to argue with you because if you've read about it and you've looked at the stats, and obviously that's what PFF is saying.
Well, no, it's not just PFF. It's two separate. It's two separate measurements. PFF gave him one of the worst grades out of any starting guard, and then I believe it's the NFL stats that said that he had the highest pressure allowed rate.
Jeez, yeah.
So it's two separate stats.
I would even I'm not going to put all of this on Kenyon Green.
No,
I'm going to put it on the entire line. The entire line is really bad.
Right, but when you have somebody that is playing that badly,
it doesn't help.
It completely destroys the interior.
100%.
And we kind of all know that Tunsil just kind of does his own thing. He always has. Probably always will. And he can be a great supporting. He's a captain, so apparently he does have leadership skills. But I don't know if Tunsil is really the anchor. Like talent-wise, he is. But I don't know if like personality-wise, he should be the anchor. And I mean, Howard's looks so bad on the right side.
I mean, the whole lines look bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Laremy's look bad. Like a lot of the sacks were on the outside. There wasn't a ton of interior pressure sacks. Like there was a couple, but most of them was like a mismatch. Like Rashawn Gary, I believe, was matched up against Dalton Schultz on one of those sacks. Like there were a lot of issues with the way that the offensive line was schemed. And I know everybody wants to blame Bobby Slowik for the offensive line. I think he could probably scheme some things to make it better, but ultimately it's on the offensive line coach and it's on D'Amico, right? Like D'Amico should be holding that offensive line coach accountable for the performance of the offensive line.
Right.
The offensive coordinator puts together the offensive plan and then calls the plays. He's not overly responsible for how the entire offense performs. That's why there's subcategory managers.
It makes me kind of wonder though with the offensive line because they have put so much resources into it.
Yep.
And are they starting necessarily the best players, or are they starting the guys that on paper should be the best players because of what's been invested?
Well, and that's
because I mean with Green, I'm
the case.
With Green, I'm ready for that to hit.
Well, I mean,
and I think Howard's been outplayed by Fisher every time he's been there. So just
100%.
Move Howard inside and just try it out because this isn't working.
I mean, if you want to wave the white flag on Green, I'm fine with it. I have no issues with that. Put Howard back. Like he's played more snaps at I forgot where I saw it, but he's played more snaps at guard than he has at tackle in his entire career. Yeah. And we paid him as a tackle, right? So that's on us for doing that. It's a mismanagement of the cap by Nick Caserio. I would say the entire line needs to be fixed. And this is probably a hot take, but honestly, if I am Nick Caserio, I'm probably looking to move Tunsil at the trade deadline, to be honest with you. I would maximize whatever I can for Laremy Tunsil. I don't think he fits the scheme, but more importantly, I don't think he fits the demeanor that this team wants to play with and the demeanor of the head coach. He's just very soft. He's always been a soft player, right? Like, and we've known that, but he's been so good that it's just you deal with it. At this point, with the accountability issues that we've seen so far this year, and a lot of the comments he's made, and then the lack of performance and lack of consistent performance, to me, it's almost like he's asking to be traded to an
Right.
extent. Because I haven't seen this level of like, I don't know, lack of effort from Tunsil,
Well,
even during the rebuild. So it was like, why is this coming up now?
it's with Tunsil, it's almost the weirdest thing. So with him, it's like the highs are high and the lows are really fucking low.
Yeah.
I mean, you get him on just straight up passing downs and just ask him to stonewall.
Fine.
Fine. He's still there. He still can do it. But the mental mistakes, the penalties, I don't know if it's his way of pushing back against getting called out for all the penalties. That might be how this is just his reaction to it. But there is something definitely wrong with him as our left tackle, even though he is a phenomenal talent. But there's something definitely wrong there.
I think the problem is he doesn't like to be coached.
That might be.
I honestly believe that's the issue. We've heard rumors about practices and all of this. I think during the rebuild and during the tenure of Coley and Lovey, I believe that he wasn't coached or held to the standard that you would want to hold. There's two philosophies when it comes to a star player from a head coach. One is let the star player dictate and do whatever they want, empower them to let them do, like DeAndre, right? Like what we did with DeAndre.
That's the Cowboys method, the Jimmy Johnson method. And he's the one that made that famous.
And that's just a management method. But and then you have the coach hard. All my players are held to the same standard. It doesn't matter what star you have, how much you're paid. You're coached.
Yeah, the other extreme with that is Belichick, who did that to everybody with Brady, because Brady also just did it to everyone.
So D'Amico is, I wouldn't say he's on that side. I'd say he's probably more in the middle. I think he kind of has an understanding on how to work them both. But I do believe that he wants his players to practice. And when they practice, I believe he wants them to practice hard. I think Laremy doesn't like to practice hard, believes that he can just show up on Sundays and play and be done. And I think that doesn't fit. And I wouldn't be surprised if Laremy Tunsil is either moved at the deadline or moved after this season. Because you can't have a guy making that, setting the standard for what your offensive line should be. You're the captain. You're the captain of the offensive line. You are the one that should set the tone and the standard for how each player on the line should perform. And you don't do that consistently in practice, and you don't do it consistently in the game.
No. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. Like, that actually kind of makes sense with the issues that he has, like the offsides and everything. People have always made excuses for him. But if you're getting the offsides based on timing, what do you need to do to get timing? You need to fucking practice.
Right, 100%.
And if he's really not practicing as hard or as often as he should, you're seeing that with the timing issues and the false starts.
Right.
Because does not matter how much talent you have, that timing issue can only be fixed through practice.
Well, and it's funny because if you go back to his comments that he made on the game where there was just so many penalties, I forgot which game it was, but it was the game after the Bears. But he basically said, like, it's not just me. You just hear my name called, like basically like blaming the entire offensive line. And if that's the case, the cadence is set by the center. Right. So that's fine. You're blaming Patterson or you're blaming Scruggs, whatever it may be. But like you're what is he, a 10-year vet now? Like, I mean, dude, you haven't figured out how to go to the second-year center and say, hey, from a cadence perspective, like we need to be in line and in sync for this to work. What can we do to correct this issue? Those are things that are done in practice. You can't do those in game. And so I don't know. I think Laremy, I think his time in Houston is up, in my opinion. And I don't know when the trade deadline is. It's obviously coming up because we're seeing trades after trades after trades. So I would assume it's coming up soon.
I think we have 2 weeks.
Okay, so 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a team that's competing or needs a left tackle that is willing to give up. Honestly, at this point, probably just the first, maybe a first and a third. I know everybody's like, oh my God, you have to get 2 1s back because that's what you gave up. That's just not how it works. But, maybe a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 3, either way. And then Titus needs to go back to left guard. Kenyon Green needs to be either cut or back to hoping he develops. You really don't gain anything by cutting him. This is his third year. You have one more year on his contract. I would say give him another offseason. This is the first time he's had a full offseason without injuries to be able to actually ramp up for the season. So maybe one more, see what you got. If he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it. And then just go from there.
Yeah,
That's what you have to do.
Well, the thing with Green is he was drafted entirely on his physical abilities.
Right.
So he should be a monster out there.
Yeah.
He's just not.
And he's shown like glimpses at times where it's like, you can be a bulldozer. You can be like that guy, but you don't do it consistently. And I don't understand why. I'm not saying he does it a lot. I think it's 5-6 times, right? But what I'm saying is he's shown that he can do it.
I mean, at this point, Fisher's played very well for a rookie.
Yep.
Let him play more. Tunsil doesn't get traded during the season. I mean, I agree with the reasoning. I 100% agree with the reasoning. But how do you get a left tackle during a playoff run?
I mean, I think
what do you do?
I think you're going to have to. We've
got problems at both bookends. So what do you do?
Do we have a problem? You said it yourself. Fisher has played better than Howard. So if you move Titus back to left guard and you have a little bit more support on the left side than what you have currently, maybe you could have a stopgap left tackle, right? Like we saw last year, Bobby was able to scheme up a lot of the protection, and he was able to do it at a really high level, right? Now, it's going to be a lot different when you don't have Laremy Tunsil at left tackle. I think the main reason why you trade him now...
Yeah, he revitalized Noah Fant's career. Like, Noah Fant got another contract entirely based on how he was schemed last year.
But when it comes to, like, why trade Tunsil now? Because you need to set the tone and you need to send the message to the rest of the team that it doesn't matter anymore. This isn't Coley, this isn't Lovey. We have a franchise quarterback under center. If you're not going to take what we're trying to accomplish here in Houston seriously, then we're going to move on from you, no matter your stature, no matter your paycheck, no matter where you were drafted. You're gone. And that goes for everybody moving forward. And I think that's the main reason why I would do it. Maybe they won't. I think it's a very risky move. It doesn't strike me as a move, but then again, it kind of does. Like, to me, it's very Belichickian to get rid of a Richard Seymour before the decline and get max value. I could easily see Nick Caserio saying to himself, he's not meshing.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting paid a lot of money, and he's at a premier position that can maximize our return. Maybe it's something that we do. I think there's lots of benefits. I don't think it happens. Though.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens.
Yeah,
I'd be for it though. And if so, we got to plug and play. That's fine. If we got to figure out how things are going to go over the next couple of weeks and through the rest of the season, not an ideal scenario, but either is what happens Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what's your excuse then? It can't be worse.
Well, I mean, it
can't be worse.
It's very similar to what happened with the Vikings. Like, this was either the main issue is with the offensive line when it comes to playing both teams.
Yep.
I mean, this was an issue with why we couldn't really get going against the Colts.
Yep.
But we did enough. But these next tier teams, both the Packers and the Vikings, we can't do enough with what we have. And that's starting to get a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
On our offensive line.
100%.
If we had lost a different way, I feel like I think I feel better about the loss. Like, this isn't all doom and gloom because we now have 2 losses.
Well, to be clear, we were winning with 1:40 left. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like we didn't lose the game because we had a chance to win the game. We didn't. It's one of those kind of games.
This is just I'm just highly frustrated with not seeing improvement on the offensive line.
I agree.
And CJ Stroud statistically had a terrible game, but didn't turn the ball over, which is something.
Yeah.
And he's been dancing around that pocket at an insane rate this year.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand how last year we were able to scheme protection for him.
Yep.
We were able to scheme easy plays for him to get going when there was too much pressure to just kind of take that off, make teams pay if they were really pressuring him, being over aggressive with their pressure. And this year, CJ Stroud still has top tier numbers against the blitz. He's still elite versus the blitz. However, he's getting pressured at an insane rate.
Yeah.
Against the Packers, he was pressured at a higher percentage than any other quarterback this season.
That's insane.
And for as bad as his numbers look, just think about what we did to Caleb Williams on less pressures.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, we need to appreciate Stroud, but he's not the one that's creating pressure. This is entirely on the offensive line.
I do think I do think there's a I think there's more of a broader issue too that's not just specific only to the offensive line. I do think if I had to say like problem, 75% would be offensive line, right?
Mhm.
I would probably say another 15 to 20% would probably be wide receivers getting open. Just based on some of the film studies I've seen on Twitter. Again, I haven't gone back and watched all 22. I don't do
Neither
that
have I.
anymore. But like watching a breakdown, there's this young kid. He has like 850 followers, but he's like, I guess some new guy on the cron. He did a full thing breaking down the entire game. And there were a lot of times that like wide receivers were not getting open on first, second reads, which in that add the issues of the offensive line, it kind of magnifies it, right? So when wide receivers aren't getting open, it kind of creates another issue. Now, so that's not on Stroud either, right? If wide receivers can't get open, he can't make you get open. He is the best ball placement in the league. If he sees an opportunity to place the ball somewhere, he's going to do it. And then I would say the other 5% is a lot of still just CJ Stroud developing. And I think that's okay for him to have 5% of the blame. You know, there are things that he could do. There are things that, that he could have done Sunday a little bit better. But overall, I would say it's only 5% of the issues are CJ. Everything else is really things that can be fixed and should be fixed from a schematic perspective, and then also from just an offensive line perspective. To go back to the offensive line, and then we'll move off of this. You paid Tunsil, you paid Howard, you paid Mason, right? You have three guys that are making top tier money. Mason isn't an issue. Howard and Tunsil are an issue. At the most important positions on the offensive line, you have invested a shit ton of money, and both are problems at that position.
Yep.
You have to figure that out. That's inexcusable. And if Nick didn't buy into who Laremy was or whatever it may be, whatever the issue is, I have no idea. They got to figure it out. I don't think you can make Laremy care. I don't think you can make Laremy want to practice. I think he's gone through his entire career this way. Good luck changing him now. It's just not going to happen, right? Titus, he seems more worried about like on Twitter what people are saying about him and getting blown by, whatever it may be. I don't know if you can fix that. But if you want to have a chance at saving Titus, I think the best thing you could do is move off from Laremy and get him away from Titus and let somebody else come in and try to help develop Titus's mind in some form or fashion. And then you got to go back to the offensive line coach. That guy has to start to figure it out too.
Yep.
You know, he's the one that holds them accountable and holds them to the standard. And if he's not doing that on a day-to-day basis, if you're not a consistent leader daily, then those are the types of things that happen. So the offensive line's an issue. Defense, they did just enough to win the game. I really don't have any qualms with the defense. I think, Will Anderson showed up yet again. Hunter showed up. I know everybody wants him to show up more. I'm excited for what the defense they continue to show week after week that they're getting better and better, especially when you consider the injuries with Lassiter out and stuff like that. Kalen Bullock looks like he's going to just continue to develop and become a player at a spot where we definitely need it. And so the defense is definitely, I would say, the positive side of how we should be viewing this team. I think that's probably the biggest positive to take away, that and the run game. I think the run game was very
Joe
good
Mixon.
again, right? Joe Mixon is the guy.
Joe Mixon
he's a beast, dude.
I mean, when we traded for him, everyone was like kind of shrugging their shoulders.
And then when we signed him to the extension, everybody was just like, dude, what the hell?
But he just brings so much to the run game as both a runner and a receiver. His flexibility is just, I mean, he's a great fit for what we're trying to do, which just kind of just magnifies everything.
Yeah.
I think that, again, it's tough to trade a left tackle. I don't think it'll happen during the season, but I do think that there will be a reckoning during the offseason.
I agree.
I mean,
I think the safest play is to trade him in the offseason.
Yeah. Like there's enough value there for somebody that is obviously not either a schematic or a coaching fit. Tunsil probably goes to the Chiefs or somebody or a team like that is kind of set up for his type of personality and what they want to do, and he's going to look like a Hall of Famer, which will suck. But I don't think with what the Texans are trying to do, he really fits.
No, and it fits the Patriots' philosophy of getting rid of a player before the decline. I'm not saying that he's at the point, but like he's probably 3 years away from starting to see that, right? So you've seen them do it time and time and time again. It is a true philosophy of theirs. So if you can do it, do it. If you don't do it this season, I totally understand it. Not everybody moves like me, and I'm not a GM of an NFL team, so I probably wouldn't be one after trading Laremy Tunsil at the trade deadline. But
I mean, you've got to earn being able to trade Laremy Tunsil, but I think Caserio has.
I think he has. I mean, we've seen how he negotiates. We've
Yeah.
seen what he gets back. We see how he handles those types of situations. I wouldn't be surprised if he maximized it to the best of his ability. I mean, I think you get more now than you do in the offseason because there's teams that need it and are competing. Like Baltimore could be a team that might need it. There are some teams out there that could use a left tackle that are going for it all. But we'll see. Like you said, probably not this season. No. Probably next season is what it is.
I mean, I think that the Texans as a whole, especially with this defense, the way defense is really beginning to shape up.
Yeah,
like the Texans are a baby step away from being like that Super Bowl contender, like a baby step
on the defensive side.
No, I'd say overall. On the offense.
Okay.
That's why it's frustrating because again, to me, if we could get similar production out of our so-called star players as we got out of backups and guys we signed off practice squads, like that's it. Things will start to click.
Okay.
But the problem with the offense has been predominantly the offensive line.
Yeah.
For the entire season. Now, I didn't watch the All-22, but I can take a guess that Diggs does not have the speed to take on a corner like Jaire Alexander anymore. Now, he's always had Diggs is one of the best route runners in all of football, but he can be shut down.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened on the side of Tank Dell. I don't know who had coverage on Tank Dell. But this is where having that third option to kind of take to pick on the third corner, and when Nico's healthy, how it really can work. Like your third option is essentially a number 2 option anywhere else, like that quality of player. And maybe right now we just don't have that with our backups.
I want to see more of Hutchinson.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather see more Hutchinson than Diggs at this point. I think we've seen what Diggs is. I haven't seen enough Hutchinson with Nico out for us to kind of have an understanding of what the wide receiving core looks like minus Nico, right? And if we're being honest, we know Nico's going to miss 4 games a year. It's happened since his rookie year.
Yeah. Right? I mean, even back to college.
That's what I mean. He missed his entire last season.
Yeah, that's why he fell.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I want to see more of Hutchinson. I think I want to see more Mechie. I want to see Bobby start to really mix in that like quick 1, 2, 3 throw, yak yardage type of routes with Mechie and Tank. I think that Slowik, when you're a genius or when you're crowned a genius, you tend to buy into the fact that you're a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Elon Musk, right? Like, so you tend to believe it a little too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Slowik's at that point yet, but I think there are things that he's doing that's complicating the offense in a way that we didn't see last year. And I think the pressure of, him staying and not being a head coach and all, he's probably trying to continue to evolve his name and his career, but there are things that he needs to do to simplify it again, to go back to what we were doing last year. A lot more play action, a lot more quick throws, lots of ins and slants. We're just not seeing that. We're seeing a lot more of, I don't want to say the Bill O'Brien type offense where it was like a long developing plays downfield, but we are seeing it where things are not, they don't seem to be as cohesive as they were last year. Right. And when you add a wide receiver like Stephon Diggs, who even on the decline of his career, he's still a top 20 wide receiver in the league, right? So you would think that
he's still a top 5 route runner. He may still be the best pure route runner in the league right now. I mean,
but if you lack that burst and that speed,
exactly.
sometimes that, if you're a route runner the size of Andre, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Because you could still go up and make a play.
Well, I mean, it's the difference between
like, you can't.
Stephon always had that quickness, and his routes are just unbelievable. But the difference between him and, say, he just doesn't have the size of Keenan Allen in Chicago.
Exactly.
He's probably the number 2 route runner.
If not, I think he's number 1. But yeah.
But I mean, they're both right there.
100%.
But you look at the size difference. So
that's
Keenan
the
Allen,
difference.
yeah. And with this, I mean, looking back a little bit on this year, I think the reason we've gotten away from the play actions is offensive line play,
which is insane because last year we were more.
That's exactly my point.
So it's like we got to go back to that.
Well, we did that with a worse line, a worse line on paper. That's my entire point.
Yeah,
like I don't give a shit how good you are at pass blocking. If your offensive coordinator or your offensive line coach or whomever's making this decision is like, we can't run the amount of play actions we need to because somebody's going to fail at the offensive line when CJ has his back turned.
Which is insane.
I mean, there's
especially when you consider Joe Mixon's a better run blocker too.
There's at least 4 or 5 instances where they tried to run play action where with CJ with his back turned, it gets jumped.
I know.
And that's insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're going to fix that. It's going to be interesting, especially going against the Colts this week. Like, Colts are a better team than what they were when we played. I mean, the offense is the offense. AR is AR. You don't know which one you're going to get.
Yep.
But they are 4-3. They beat us this week. We had the same record. So, you know what I mean? So, like, there's, like, you need to take this game serious, which I'm assuming they will. Like, I don't think that this coaching staff and this team is going to look over or overlook the Colts, but this team is coming in hot. And they propose some issues at certain spots, especially the interior of the offensive line is going to be tested, right?
I mean, we've talked how the Colts and the Texans kind of mirror each other. Yeah. These are two teams that are, whether intentionally or not, they play to each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
So very evenly matched, even though they shouldn't be, because I do think that the Texans overall have more talent, better quarterback. But the way the Colts are able to attack our weaknesses, specifically the interior of the line without Nico. And I mean, Nico was always guaranteed 150 yards and a touchdown against the Colts. So they don't have them.
Yeah.
They're a little scarier.
Yeah, and I think just with DeForest Buckner and like what he's able to do on the interior, given the offensive line issues right now and Kwity Paye, like there are some things that the Colts they can present some problems to this offensive line that's already shown that they're inconsistent and can't perform. So it's going to be interesting. I hope we see a change in demeanor, because in my opinion, that's truly what it is. This offensive line is not a bunch of dogs. This offensive line is like they're more finesse players, right? Like Laremy is a finesse tackle. He's not a power tackle, right? He's not going to run you over like Williams. Titus, same way. He doesn't want to get as physical, right? Kenyon Green, that's what he was known as. He was known as a mauler, but we don't see it consistently. Shaq Mason, he's doing his job. And then you got a second-year guy at center. They're going to have to find a way to scheme protection for CJ. CJ cannot continue to take these hits because it's going to be one of those plays where something bad happens and then the season's gone, right? And we've talked about all year how it's just about being able to play in the dance in January. Nothing else matters prior to January once you make January, right? And they have to figure out a way to scheme this offensive line and scheme this protection, because if not, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's got to get fixed. This offense, and here's the biggest problem: the offensive line has the talent. They straight up have the talent to play better than they have.
They do.
And again, if you keep giving up pressures the way you have, if CJ's running for his life the way he is, if he's taking those hits, he's going to get hurt. He's going to miss a couple of games. And it's just, when is that going to happen?
Right.
And at this point, we're going to put money. CJ's going to miss 2 games. When are those 2 games going to be?
I'm not putting money on that. I have no. The way this offensive
line, I'm not even putting that
out there right now.
The way this offensive line is playing, it's going to happen.
Nah, he's a superhero. I don't know. That's Captain America.
It's I mean, it's probably the Jets game.
That's Black Panther, bro. No, it's T'Challa. I'm not doing it. Nope. He's not getting hurt at all this year, so I'm not even putting that out there.
All right.
I do think that the Colts, though, like it's going to be a fun game. It'll be. I think it's the second game back for AR, so it'll be good to be able to see. Is he getting any better? Is he progressing? Obviously, with injuries, it's going to be. You would expect that he's not developing in the way that you would want him to if you're a Colts fan. And then just seeing that team, like I said, they're performing with Joe Flacco, and like there are things that they're doing
great with Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
I'm actually more afraid of them with Flacco than
they're winning.
They are
right. And so this will be a really good. Excuse me. This will be a really good game. I expect the Texans to win this game. But it'll be. I wouldn't be surprised if this one's close.
Oh yeah, it's going to be close again. But I think the Texans hold on to this one. Yeah, I think the Texans are going to beat the Colts.
Yeah.
I do feel confident still saying that because fuck the Colts. And
yeah.
Again, we have more talent, but they're gonna do just enough that next week maybe another aggravated podcast. We're gonna sit there, even though we won. This is the issues we see, and right now, I don't know. 2 losses. Keep telling myself it's only 2 losses. But 2 losses that were very similar. The Texans have improved because they kept it close. They should have won.
They win that game.
They should have won. Yeah. I mean, they really should have won. But as bad as everything went, the Texans still, I feel as though, should have beat the Packers. So that gives me hope.
Yeah. And then let's talk, I guess, real quickly about the mismanagement of the last season by Bobby Slowik and the run plays and all of that. There were some things that obviously you either continue to run the ball or you pass on early downs, right? Mm-hmm. That's the philosophy. You figure that out. Because you want to help your quarterback and you want to help your offense be in a position to be able to get that first down if necessary, right? He's got to get better at that. He does. Like that's one of those things where, like, for all of you at home that were screaming at the TV, like, you have every right to scream at the TV. You have every right to, like, we know that. And we're not offensive coordinators, so it's not okay for Slowik to not know it and not be able to do what was needed for us to be able to win that game, or at least better our odds to win that game. And that's what it came down to. I don't know if it was enough of a, like, I'm not going to say it was like a deciding factor, because for all you know, he doesn't get the first downs on on any of the plays, no matter what's called, or if they have 40 seconds and maybe they still win the game. Like, you just don't know how that goes, but he's got to be better.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Slowik's in his mind.
He is.
He's like he's in his own headspace.
He's an analytical guy.
He is. I mean, that was one of the things
tough.
That's one of the things that everybody loved about him. This is a guy that started out as a QC on defense to understand defense, quality control on defense. Moved into the Shanahan tree, learned it with a background from PFF.
Yep.
He is supposed to be one of the new wave offensive coordinators that doesn't just do things based on tradition. He actually looks at the numbers. He looks at success rates. And I think part of the problem with him is he looks at the talent on the offense, and maybe they are even able to do it in practice, or may go back to not having certain people at practice.
Yep.
And he's like, they should be able to execute these sort of things. They executed against the top tier defense, which we have in practice. And then for whatever reason, certain key pieces of it always seem to fall apart during the game.
Yeah.
And with that, I don't think he knows when to simplify versus when to get complex. Last year, he was able to make adjustments, but he just dumbed down the playbook, essentially.
Yeah.
And this year, even when he's making the adjustments, he knows that he has a absolute star at QB. And I think that there might also be a little bit of ego. It's like, hey, we don't want to cut down the playground because we don't want to get into, like, I think there might be something there, kind of like, this isn't anything against CJ Stroud, and this isn't necessarily against Slowik, but they got to figure out a way to communicate where we're going to simplify things, not because of so-and-so's performance, but we just have to get to a bread and butter. Like, when we're in trouble, this is what we do, especially when we don't have Nico there.
Yeah. I think one of the things, at least just in my experience of, like, managing people and, like, managing different perspectives and approaches, the analytical person, right? And then the, like somebody who's a little bit more balanced, analytical, and also just like feels things and can determine things. And then you have the other guy who just goes based off of knowledge and experience and pays attention to the data, but not really. Like the people who are very analytically driven and data driven tend to be, there are times where some of them are too data driven.
Right.
There are some who lack the ability to feel or sense things, right? And go off of experience or other things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can lean into the data too much, and it can lead you to a series like we saw against the Packers, right? And so you have to ask, like, is it maybe at a point where Bobby needs to kind of reel back in the data a little bit and start to go for more of a feel of the game? Where are we at? Like, what are we doing? Like, we need to get momentum. We need to get rhythm. Like, there are other aspects that you have to take into consideration that you're not when you only look at data. And, and I'm not saying
Well,
that is what Bobby does, but when I hear him speak and I watch how he talks, he comes off very analytical.
yeah.
And so it's like, and that's good. There are positives to both, but you
Yeah.
got to be both in this
Well, I
situation.
think that, I mean, it's John R. Harbaugh that actually has the best philosophy on that.
Yeah.
Like, where he said that, yeah, the numbers say that we should go for it on fourth, but I know my guys.
Exactly. You have to know your
You got
guys.
to know your guys.
So, and he's learning them. So, that's another thing that comes with being a second year play caller. There's just certain things that as you get these moments under your belt and you gain the experience, you start to feel a little bit better and you start to be able to add those things that you didn't have before. So,
and
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, with Slowik, it's like, I think, yeah, like you see it at work all the time, the guys that always fall back on the numbers. Do you always understand the why behind the numbers?
Right.
Like, yes, statistically, this is what you should do, but do you understand why you should do it, not just the statistics behind it?
Yeah.
And again, that may come.
Yeah, 100%.
That may be what he's working on. But I think also numbers guys sometimes don't always know how to sell it.
I would agree.
Where I'm saying this with, he knows this is what he should do, but he doesn't know how to necessarily tell the people around him to get bought in to why it's going to work. Especially in football, where you do a lot of things that are kind of archaic.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we've always done it this way. Well, how do you break that mindset? And I think, again, this is all us just like kind of trying to figure out what's going on with our offensive coordinator. I have no proof of any of this. I'm just trying to figure out why this guy that last year was able to get to a point with his play calling that just made everything just fall into place. And all of a sudden this year, our offensive line, which there's more talent on, not there. Our wide receivers, which there is definitely more talent there, they're not necessarily there.
Yeah.
Other than, of course, Collins, who was on pace to just have a crazy year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm not going off of anything I know or see. I'm just going based off of the data that I've gathered in my time with dealing with people. So, yeah, I mean, we'll find out. We'll see. He's young, so there's only up from here. Hopefully, we both picked the Colts to win. The Texans to win this game. Okay, cool. All right. Well, anything else you got today?
How did the guy up north? How did that make you feel? Just real quickly.
Yeah. Injuries are tough. It's a hard thing to. It's a hard thing to like be happy about somebody tearing their Achilles.
You know what? I'm gonna put this out there. I was actually not happy that he tore it because I was enjoying him being so bad.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, like, would you rather watch him continue to just suck at football?
I was enjoying that.
And see how the Browns handle it. Because now you've kind of given, like, now the story's written already. Deshaun comes back. He's not himself.
Yeah,
he's not this. He's injured. The Achilles takes time. This is second time. All that story's written. And so he kind of gets to ride off in the sunset as like this injured quarterback that never reached the full potential. I don't like that storyline as much as I like the storyline of guy just sucked ass forever and never reached his potential because his mind was fucked from all the decisions he made off the field. I would have liked that story.
I was fully into him continuing to screw up his career like QBR.
100%.
I mean, if you look at it 10 years from now, they're going to look at, he had a couple of bad seasons.
Yeah.
But if he had continued to play, He had to play. He had to pay him. Now he has an out.
When I would have liked to have seen like my thought was like, okay, he sucks, he gets cut, then somebody picks him up and like they think that he can fix it and get better, and it'd be like a fucking Titans or a
Yeah.
Jags, and he sucks even worse.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like there's so many different storylines, like alternate storylines that could have been created from this.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Now his career's just done.
now his career's over. Good for you. You got $230 million. You stole from a city again. Like, congrats, bro. Like, and luckily for us, like, you're out. You're probably gonna be out of football, so at least we don't have to think about you or talk about you, which is fantastic. And Jameis Winston can just shut the fuck up. Like, Jameis Winston is just, in my opinion, you're a bitch. Myles Garrett, you're a bitch too. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have kids or a wife, I'm assuming, because like, how dare you fuckheads get in front of the press conference like that and be able to fucking say, you know, what type of man he is? Like, you just don't have to answer those questions. And the fact that you guys continue to choose to answer them in this like fucking way, it makes me lose more respect for players that I actually like. I liked Jameis Winston. I fucking loved Myles Garrett. But like, I can't continue to watch these guys support this fucking nasty motherfucking Deshaun Watson. I can't. It's gross, dude. It's gross. So, with that being said, I'm Youngarigold. That's John Wade signing off for Texans Unfiltered. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, share the podcast, retweet, all of that, and we will catch you guys next week.